I never thought I'd be standing here, staring at a letter that changes everything. My grandmother's house, the place where I spent countless summers, where every corner holds a memory, is being sold. And not just sold, it's being taken away from me. No warning, no conversation. Just a cold letter from the HOA, saying they're handing it over to a real estate company. Just like that. You might be wondering, how could this happen? How could something so personal be ripped away without even a say? The house that's been in our family for generations, now slipping through my fingers. It's not just the building, it's everything it represents. The history, the love, the laughter. And now it's all up for grabs. The more I read, the angrier I get. There's something shady going on here. And I have a feeling it's a lot more than just bad luck. You'd think something like this would take months, maybe years to plan. But it happened so quickly. The ink barely dry on the papers, and suddenly, a stranger owns the place my family called home. Can you imagine the shock? The disbelief? It's not just a house. It's my heritage, my memories, all wrapped up in those walls. I'm not the kind of person to let this slide. No, I'm ready to fight. I'm not just going to stand by while some investor takes what's mine. Not without a fight. There's a lot more going on here than meets the eye, and I plan to get to the bottom of it. The real question is, what happens next? My grandmother's house was everything to me. It wasn't just a place, it was the place. The front porch, where we'd sit for hours, chatting about life and sipping iced tea. The old oak tree in the backyard where I'd play hide and seek with my cousins. It was more than just walls and a roof. It was the heartbeat of my family, a symbol of all the love and care my grandmother poured into it. Every room had a story, a memory etched into its very foundation. She always said, "This house will stay in the family. It's where we started, and it's where we'll always be." Those words meant everything to me. I promised her I'd take care of it, just like she did. But now, I'm facing the harsh reality that her promise is being broken. I never imagined the day would come when I'd be blindsided by a letter from the HOA. I always thought they were just a nuisance, but this was something else entirely. The letter claimed they were legally selling the house to a real estate investor, with no explanation, no forewarning. It didn't take long to realize something was off. The HOA wasn't just doing their job. They were working with the investor, colluding behind the scenes, making decisions that didn't include me. I was left in the dark, like a stranger to my own family's legacy. This isn't just about a property. It's about my family's legacy being stolen from under my nose. And I'll be damned if I let them get away with it. Now the real question is, can I stop this from happening before it's too late? At first I was just in shock. How could something like this happen? I felt powerless, like I was trapped in someone else's nightmare. But I wasn't about to sit back and let this go down without a fight. My grandmother's house wasn't just a piece of property. It was our family's history, and I wasn't going to let anyone erase that. I started by gathering every document I could find, the HOA's bylaws, the emails, anything that might give me a clue as to how they were able to pull this off. What I found shocked me. There were clauses in their agreements that I never even knew existed, ones that seemed to give them free rein to do whatever they wanted. I felt a pit in my stomach when I realized how they'd manipulated the rules, and I was enraged. Next, I knew I had to consult an expert. I called in a real estate attorney, someone who could decipher the legal jargon and tell me where I stood. He didn't sugarcoat anything, but his advice gave me hope. There were definitely ways to fight back. It wasn't going to be easy, but it was possible. I started putting together a strategy, gather more evidence, build a case, and expose the shady dealings of the HOA and the investor. I wasn't just going to fight for myself. I was fighting for my family's legacy. The more I learned, the more I realized I wasn't alone. There were others out there who had been duped in the same way. And now it was time to take action. This wasn't just about getting my home back. This was about standing up for what's right. I had a plan, and I wasn't going to stop until I saw it through. The day had come. I was standing in front of the HOA and the real estate company, armed with everything I had gathered over the past few weeks. I could feel my heart racing, but I wasn't nervous. I was ready to expose their dirty secrets and take back control of what was rightfully mine. I stepped forward and slammed the stack of documents onto the table. You've made a huge mistake, I said, my voice steady but filled with anger. You sold my grandmother's home without my consent. You manipulated the rules, took advantage of my family's trust, and now, I'm here to hold you accountable. The room went silent for a moment. The faces of the HOA reps shifted uneasily, but the real estate guy? He just sat there smug like he had done nothing wrong. I wasn't about to let him off the hook. You think you can just take everything without anyone noticing? I continued, my voice rising with each word. You've been pulling this kind of stunt with other families, haven't you? Well, not anymore. There was a brief pause before one of the HOA reps tried to defend their actions. We were just following protocol, she said, her tone cold and calculated. Following protocol? I shot back. Protocol that you conveniently failed to mention to me when I inherited the house? You think that makes it okay? The tension was thick, the kind of silence that makes your blood run cold. But I wasn't backing down. Not now. Not ever. This was more than a legal battle. It was a moral one, and I was determined to win. You can try to cover up your tracks, I said, but I'm not going anywhere. You've underestimated me. Everything I had worked for was finally coming to a head. The case wasn't just about me anymore. It had become bigger. Word had spread, and the community was starting to rally around me. Neighbors who had been silent, people who had dealt with the same shady practices from the HOA, were speaking up. I was no longer fighting alone. I remember the day the story broke in the local news. The headline screamed, HOA takes advantage of inherited homes. A family's fight for justice. It felt surreal, but in the best possible way. Suddenly, it wasn't just my battle. It was ours. People were calling, showing up at my door, offering support, offering their own stories of injustice. It was overwhelming, but also one afternoon, as I stood in front of a crowd of reporters and community members, I could see the impact this was having. The realization hit me all at once. Exposing the HOA's corrupt practices wasn't just about getting my home back. It was about shining a light on something that had been happening for years in the shadows. I'm not just fighting for my grandmother's home, I said to the crowd. I'm fighting for all of us. We can't let these companies think they can control us, take what we've built, just because they think we're too small to fight back. The cheers that followed gave me the strength to keep pushing. The momentum was building, and I could feel it. This was the turning point. People were paying attention. The public was behind me. And now the pressure was on the HOA and the real estate company. They were exposed, and their wrongdoings couldn't be swept under the rug anymore. It was no longer just about getting justice for me. It was about justice for everyone who'd been taken advantage of. The moment I stepped back into my grandmother's house, I could hardly believe it. After all the struggles, the late nights, and the relentless pressure, it was finally mine again. The house that held years of memories, love, and history, something that had almost been ripped away from me, was right where it belonged. I remember walking through the front door, feeling the weight of everything I had fought for. The walls that had seen generations of family laughter, the old wooden floorboards creaking underfoot, and the smell of my grandmother's cooking lingering in the kitchen. It was all still there untouched, preserved by the people who had fought beside me. The HOA and the real estate company, they were now facing the consequences of their actions. Their shady practices had been exposed for everyone to see, and the public outcry had been too loud to ignore. Legal actions were being taken, and they had no choice but to back down. They thought they could get away with it, but they underestimated the power of a community coming together, and the determination of someone fighting for what's right. As I stood there, surrounded by the support of my community, I realized how much I had grown. I'd gone from feeling helpless to being the one who sparked change. I had become a voice for those who felt voiceless, showing them that it was possible to stand up to the people who thought they were untouchable. This wasn't just my victory. It was the victory of everyone who had been taken advantage of, everyone who had ever felt like they were up against a system they couldn't fight. And as I looked around, I knew one thing for sure. This battle wasn't over, but we had won the first round. And it felt incredible. As I stand here today, looking at my grandmother's home, I can't help but think about the bigger picture. This fight wasn't just about reclaiming a house. It was about standing up for what's right when it feels like the odds are stacked against you. It's about recognizing that injustice, no matter how small it seems, affects all of us. We all deserve to be heard. We all deserve to fight for what's ours. What happened to me is happening to so many people right now. Maybe even someone you know. We live in a world where systems often seem designed to push us down, to make us feel powerless. But I'm here to tell you that you don't have to let it happen. You have a voice. You have the ability to make a change, just like I did. This isn't just my victory. It's a call to action for all of us. Whether it's standing up against a shady company, challenging an unfair policy, or simply refusing to be silenced, we all have the power to make a difference. It might not be easy. It might take time. But every step forward matters. If my story has taught me anything, it's that we can't let the fear of losing stop us from fighting for what's right. If we don't stand up, who will? You don't need to do it alone. Join forces with those who believe in the same cause, because together, we're unstoppable. So if you're facing something that feels impossible, take this as your reminder. You have the strength to overcome it. The first step might be the hardest, but it's also the most important. Take it. Make your voice heard. And never let anyone take what's yours. Whether it's a home, a dream, or your dignity.